I was gonna make this video many moons ago, and the synchronicity of events this past week have told me it's finally time. So, with both Dave Grohl and Perry Farrell being in the news, let me tell you my theory of how the Jane's Addiction song Ain't No Right actually inspired the title of the Nirvana song, the final Nirvana song's title, You Know You're Right. Next on Wednesdays, we talk about Nirvana.
Wednesdays. Wednesdays.
Nhầm á.
Wednesdays. Wednesdays.
Nhầm á. Über. Nhầm á.
Alright, so in the late 80s, early 90s, turn of the decade, whatever, rock and roll underground, Jane's Addiction were becoming stars, okay? They were on the upward trajectory compared to a lot of bands that were just staying in the small clubs. Jane's Addiction, they were moving up, they were getting radio airplay, and they had a lot of fans, okay? So Nirvana, they ended up being some of these fans. This is from a Chris Novoselic conversation that he had. He did a blog in the Seattle Weekly or some Seattle magazine or whatever. And I tried to get to the original article, but there's I don't know, something's wrong with the website. But I found in forums, I found some quotes of the articles, right? So here we got this here he's talking about when he saw them in 1988. Soundgarden, I think, were the opening band on the bill, and he just says, you know, they rocked. And then later on, he says that he actually saw Jane's Addiction with Kurt in the audience in 1990, and he said that the size of the crowd and things like that made them uncomfortable. The success factor. Also, speaking of the success factor, you have articles like this later on where Perry Farrell, also a friend of Taylor Hawkins, and I think that's a big factor in what's actually going on with Perry right now that nobody's talking about. Him and Taylor, they were very, very close, and it's hard to lose somebody. And sometimes grief takes a while to kick in, and then you go crazy. Ask me how I know. Ask me how I know. It took me about 3 years after losing my dad, who was my best friend. It took me about 3 years to really start losing my mind, even though I was losing my mind before that too, but that was just teenage angst and maybe subconscious grief. But anyway, this isn't about me. This is about Kurt and Jane's Addiction and Perry Farrell. So, Perry Farrell, he says, I met him briefly. I must admit, they shared substances in LA and hung out at one of the MTV award shows back when MTV award shows were good. Like that brief window where rock and roll was awesome on MTV. Even by the late 90s, it was ruined. You had to like the rock and roll that you got in the late 90s was Limp Bizkit and Korn, first of all. Not that they're bad, they're just not that great. And then, you had to take in between your doses of rock and roll you were lucky enough to get on TV. You had to take, your Britneys and Christinas and your Destiny's Child and your Ja Rules and all that crap had to come along with it. It's just kind of bull. Just kind of bull. Long live rock and roll. But so what are we talking about here? We're talking about how you know you're right was influenced by this Jane's Addiction song, Ain't No Right. Okay, so just take into account when You Know You're Right, the Nirvana song was written. And so cut to January 1994. Kurt's been through the ringer, 2.5 years of fame, and his name being smeared in the tabloids. And all he's ever wanted to do is just the same thing he wanted to do when he was growing up. You know, he just wanted to have a good time, play his music, and consume what he wanted to consume. And he never really felt free to do it. Um, you've got these sessions that were at Robert Lang's studio for 3 days, and Kurt only showed up for the last day. The other 2 days were actually some of the first Foo Fighters songs were recorded here. You go on livenirvana.com. It's a great resource if you're a Nirvana nerd. And it shows that two of the Foo Fighters songs that had been worked on that day were Exhausted and Big Me. It also says something about February Stars, which came later, and which is kind of a weird thing to think about being written while Kurt was still around, you know. Not one of the best Foo Fighters songs in my opinion. Like I said, well, maybe I haven't said it to you before, but it always kind of annoys me when Dave says kind of snarkily, Kurt wrote really simple songs, you know, and then you go and listen to a Foo Fighters song like February Stars, and it's just like, ugh, like this song is simple and it sucks. So at least Kurt's simple songs didn't suck, Dave. How about that? No offense. I like plenty of your songs too, buddy. But ugh, it's just tough, man. Anyone who's a real Nirvana fan and who's read a lot into it knows that they didn't really get along, and it's just sad, you know. As a fan, I feel like I'm caught in the middle of my parents' divorce, which I was in real life too. So you know, I'm used to it by now. I can hang through all the stress and strain. Did you catch the blue reference there, Nirvana fans? Anyway, um, I mean, what more do you want? It's a simple video to make, dude. It's some people just have to go on and on, but I'd rather just get to the point. Just take into account when You Know You're Right, the Nirvana song was written, and take into account its parallels of the song titles, and then I'm going to show you what the intro lyrics say for Ain't No Right by Jane's Addiction right here. So this is before the song actually kicks in. If I could, I'd play the song for you guys on here, but you know, I would like to keep my channel that all 200 subscribers of you, if you're watching and you're not subscribed, just do it. Just do it. Just do it. All right. So what does it say? It says subscribe to Tim Truetone's YouTube. That's what it says, okay? No, I'm just kidding. So, I mean, here you go. This is it right here. This is it. Do I need to read it to you? Can you read it yourself? You can just pause it. So just think about what Kurt was going through. They were trying to make Kurt change his lifestyle that he didn't want to change. You know, his sex and his drugs and his rock and roll were all his brain and body needed. And it was the only thing that kept him here. Now, the part about the pee cup and the face and stuff, that was actually in regards to Jane's Addiction, I think, had like a publicist or something, and that was why, that was like the whole deal or something. I don't know. It might even say Yeah, okay, it says down here below the lyrics, it tells you a little something. So it says, according to the February 7th, 1991 issue of Rolling Stone, the intro to Ain't No Right is Perry's response to a request by Jane's Addictions Management Agency to have him take a pee test. So he declined and said, get it out of his face. And, I mean, that's pretty much all I have to say about it. You know, this is one of those things that just speaks for itself, but a lot of people don't really talk about it. And, you know, me personally, Nirvana is always going to be my favorite band. You know, I mean, they just are. It bums me out that they couldn't stick around. Kurt and Dave did not get along. And sometimes Dave even still throws some underhanded jabs at Kurt in the media, dude. Like every time he talks about Nirvana songs, he's always like, Kurt's songs were so simple. You know, like Dave is fucking Geddy Lee or something, or Neil Peart, or like, I mean, I don't know. A lot of the Foo Fighters songs are pretty simple too. And I just think he knows he'll never be Kurt, and he doesn't have to be. You know, Dave's just fine being Dave, but Kurt will always be better because he stood for something and he was willing to put his life on the line for it. And anyway, if you like and subscribe and keep an eye on my channel, I've got some good things coming your way. I've got a lot of cool music I'm still working on that you guys would really like. And check out my Bandcamp. Check out the songs I have here. I've got most of my music that is currently recorded is up on this YouTube page. Listen to it. I'm just as good as anyone, guys and girls. I'm telling you. And I've got the mind for it, dude. I know what it is that most of these new bloods don't. So support me. Bye.
Wednesdays. Wednesdays.
Never.
Wednesdays. Wednesdays.
Never.
See you soon.
Never.